Good morning, everyone. My name's Joe. I'm an organiser on the Medicare for All campaign with National Nurses United, and also a member of the Labour Party and an activist and organiser with Momentum. As a Brit, born and raised in the National Health Service, moving to the US was a shock. Back home, I was involved in grassroots organising efforts to fight back against the austerity agenda being pushed by successive governments. But nothing prepared me for what it would be like living and raising a family under the austerity regime here. We don't have a healthcare system in the USA. We have a healthcare crisis. Navigating this broken and bureaucratic minefield pushed me to join the fight for healthcare justice. I have a second point of motivation. This year, people in the UK celebrated the 70th birthday of the National Health Service. For 70 years, people in the UK have had world-class universal healthcare free at the point of use. I believe it's about time that people in the US had that too. I'm going to talk to you about the big organising techniques that are being used by National Nurses United in the fight to win an expanded and improved Medicare for All. And it's fitting to talk with you all about this organising approach here at the Sanders Institute, as many of the techniques we use were pioneered on the Bernie campaign in 2016. At the heart of big organising is the idea that there is a huge but largely untapped capacity in the grassroots ready to be called into service to help win progressive causes. In order to mobilise people at the scale needed to win, we have to offer political solutions as radical as the problems we face. Technical sounding policies tinkering at the edges of systemic problems simply won't cut it. But it's not enough just to mobilise people. We need to offer a clear plan that shows a path to victory that people can understand and engage with under leadership they trust. And we need to help people to plug into that plan and get to work wherever they are. Our organising efforts draw on the finest parts of the community organising tradition. But by utilising new technologies and systems, we can scale these in a way that organisers schooled in the Alinsky model could never have dreamed of. When we have a credible plan to win and can invite people to get to work on a bold goal, we have a shot at building a volunteer army capable of overpowering corporate interests and the conservatism of establishment politicians. So before talking about how we are applying these organising principles in the Medicare for All campaign, I want to share the story of Momentum, the grassroots movement that has propelled Corbyn to the brink of becoming Britain's first democratic, socialist Prime Minister in a generation. By demonstrating how these techniques have worked in the UK, I hope to show why I believe they will help us win here as well. The United Kingdom is in the midst of a political revolution, and I'm not talking about Brexit. In the space of a few short years, the Labour Party has been transformed from a stale, conservative, and unpopular institution into a genuine champion of progressive and radical change. In the process, it has become the largest political party in the Western world. The figurehead of this revolution is Jeremy Corbyn, but the driving force has been ordinary people, many of whom are completely new to politics. Momentum has been one of the main conduits through which these people have been able to get active. Jeremy was elected as Labour's leader by a groundswell of members that were sick of seeing the party pandering to an imagined centre ground, which offered only incremental answers to the huge challenges we face, and which was failing to challenge the neoliberal consensus. We leapt at the chance to elect a leader willing to call out the rigged economic system, who could speak with authenticity, and who presented a vision of a society that works for the many and not the few. Momentum, the organisation, was created to try and maintain the momentum of Jeremy's leadership campaign. It has grown in strength through the experience of collective struggle. As my trade union sisters will attest, it is the best political education you can get. Continued attacks from the establishment has had the unintended consequence of helping us to build the infrastructure needed to fight and to win. Born of necessity, we have honed campaign techniques and built a network of people ready and willing to put in the work necessary to transform the country. This stood us in good stead when a surprise election was called in 2017. According to the experts, the outlook for Labour was bleak, 21 points behind in the polls. But in the space of 6 weeks, we turned this around, giving Labour the biggest increase in their share of the vote since 1945, and winning in parts of the country that the Conservatives had dominated for generations. Momentum organisers utilised big organising techniques and technologies to engage and mobilise supporters. Trust was placed in volunteers to take on responsibilities and perform tasks that most campaigns would only entrust to paid staff. Social media was used to drive people into effective organising efforts. Spending just £2,000, so that's, $2,500, on paid Facebook advertisements and relying on organic reach, Momentum was able to repeatedly create viral content that burst out of the bubble. 1/3 of the UK's Facebook users were reached by Momentum-made content over the 6-week election period. The focus of all of these organising efforts was to reach out to people who are usually excluded from the political process, listen to their concerns, and invite them to join us in the fight to solve them. To do this, Momentum trained volunteer canvassers in persuasion techniques that went beyond the usual data collection. Canvassers found that this dialogue-focused approach immediately broke down barriers on the doorstep and fostered a sense of solidarity in the face of political challenges which often alienate and isolate people. The scale of the volunteer effort mobilised by big organising and the big political vision on offer meant that Momentum could ignore the conventional wisdom of only canvassing a small number of people, previously identified voters in key seats, but instead attempted to engage and interact with as many people as possible. The similarities and parallels between the movements that have coalesced around Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders are self-evident. But these similarities are not just the result of similar political contexts and visions. They are the result of active solidarity. Many of the big organising techniques utilised and refined by Momentum were pioneered on the Bernie campaign. Some of these reached the UK thanks to Becky Bond and Zach Exley's excellent book, Rules for Revolutionaries. Others were brought by organisers from the Bernie campaign who travelled to the UK to help, recognising the commonality in our political struggles. This is what solidarity looks like, the sharing of tactics and strategies that work. The Nurses' campaign for Medicare for All draws on the key lessons that are being learned on both sides of the pond. Popular support for Medicare for All was ignited by Bernie's campaign. The nurses are turning that popular support into political power by putting people to work. We are building a mass movement, applying strategic pressure on elected officials to force them to fall in line behind the vision of a just healthcare system. Some people seem to think that to aim for an expanded and improved Medicare for All is too ambitious. But we know that it is only by aiming for such an ideal that we will mobilise enough people to take action to help us to win. If we don't aim high, we will fall low and will become compromised even before we start to negotiate. So we train volunteers in the persuasive canvassing techniques that prove so effective in the UK. We knock on every door. We talk to everyone. And we listen to them. People connect with politics on an emotional and personal basis, so we don't bombard them with statistics. Our canvassing puts an emphasis on listening and sharing experiences. And it turns out that nurses are the best people in the world at doing this. They do it every day at the bedside, caring for their patients. These canvassing techniques are grounded in the tradition of one-to-one conversations at the heart of Alinsky-style community organising. Big organising allows us to have these conversations at a previously unimaginable scale. Earlier this month, Senator Sanders, Senator Turner, and Congresswoman Jayapal joined our organisers in hosting a mass conference call to kick-start the national campaign for Medicare for All. Nearly 6,000 people replied to our call to action, and thousands committed to playing a leading role in organising the movement in their state. The union have identified key congressional targets that we need to win over in order to progress the Medicare for All bill through the House. During the second week of February, supporters in those districts will organise barnstorms. These mass organising meetings focus on putting people to work and will be used to recruit people to start door knocking and applying pressure on their recalcitrant representatives. Supporters outside of those districts will recruit volunteers to set up peer-to-peer text and phone banks calling into the key districts, thereby harnessing people power from across the nation, strategically targeted to maximise impact. This is how we will win Medicare for All, by building a people-powered movement at such a scale that it can overpower corporate interests and establishment politicians. In the right moment, with the right big ideas and the right organising campaign, we can win. We can defend the principle of healthcare justice in the UK. We can win healthcare justice in the US. People are uniting behind this bold vision. If this is our moment, and we believe it is, we can make true that old slogan that the people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.